from our capital city to Mobile, and yes, all the way to the Gulf of America.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
Let's react to her State of the State address. Last week was the beginning of Alabama's legislative session, and Kay Ivey kicked it off with an address to the state, talking about the state of the state. So let's play this clip that kind of gives you an idea of her tenor and some of the things she was trying to push for during her address.
From our capital city to Mobile, and yes, all the way to the Gulf of America. To the Gulf of America, we live in the greatest state, in the greatest nation on earth. You can call us a football state, and we might just become a basketball state. You say we are not innovative, and we will rightfully earn Space Command headquarters. And you say we are stuck at the bottom in education, and our students will show you the highest gains in the country. Ladies and gentlemen, the state of our state is strong, and opportunity
Okay, she didn't actually cough all that much all at once, but those are all separate coughs that I pulled together. Isn't that's a lot of coughs. She doesn't sound well. But so obviously and they were also very juicy coughs, especially that last one. But so, look, her the overall tenor of the address was like, it's morning in America kind of thing. And just, talking about the tone of that, there are things in Alabama to be excited about, and some progress that has been made recently that is genuinely true. But just as an overall point, it is interesting to me that Republicans can talk so positively about the state of the state. All of this is like retrospectively, while at the same time, literally the same people will attack Democrats when Democrats try to talk about some of the legitimately good things that the Biden administration did, right? Like we can say, and I think that I am convinced, and Adam, I wonder if you're convinced, that the Literacy and the Numeracy Act seem like they have been good for Alabama students. I mean, that it just. And I can say that, and I'm open to being persuaded otherwise, but I can say that and recognize that was a kind of a Republican thing, and it's fine that it seems like it's worked. And I can also say that it is true that there were more manufacturing jobs under Biden than there ever were under Trump, that the unemployment rate reached lower levels under Biden than it ever did under Trump, that the labor force participation rate reached higher levels than it ever did under Trump, which is not to say that there were not systemic problems across the country under the Biden administration. Obviously there were, and we were critical of them, and we were talking about them the whole time, just like we were talking about the problems in Alabama specifically. But anytime somebody points to a discrete good thing that a Democrat has done, you're called like out of touch and elite, and you don't understand the plights that normal working people have. But a Republican can get up and talk retrospectively about what was still Biden's America until 2 weeks ago, right? She's talking about all this progress that was made under Biden's America when everything was so bad. And yet there is zero talk about, not even from the Democrats, and we'll get to that here in a second, but there's no talk about Kay Ivey doesn't understand the plight of working Alabamians. And it's just like, that's kind of an interesting divergence that I noticed. But, you know, she pointed to, you know, the interest in Alabama getting the Space Command back, the fourth grade reading scores, which, you know, were impressive. The fourth grade reading and math scores went from like 48th and 49th to like 35th and 32nd, which is where from the bottom of the pack to like the lower middle of the pack. And so that is legitimately like, you know, a bright spot, right? It is worth noting, though, that we climbed the rankings only because Alabama has completely recovered from the learning gap that we faced during COVID, right? And so now in 2024, students for the first time tested as well as they did in 2019, but it's not higher. It's just that the rest of the country has fallen even further behind, and the rest of the country on average is still at a higher place than the state of Alabama is, at least with reference to fourth grade. But, you know, I mean, look, we can celebrate that. Like, there's no problem with celebrating that, right? But you would not know that from her speech, what I just told you. Also, she touted 18,000 applicants for private schools with this new school choice program, which is kind of discordant from the message that she was just saying about how great our schools are. And yet you are proud of the fact that there are 18,000 students and 18,000 families that are trying to leave the state schools. That seems strange. She talked about banning cell phones in schools, banning Glock switches. I thought that was interesting. She also pushed maternity leave for state employees and teachers, which we're really excited about. She talked about the 10 Commandments, male and female in state law, blah, blah, blah. She talked about enhanced legal protections for cops. That's crazy. But, you know, you would not hear things about how our infant mortality and our maternal mortality is still some of the highest in the nation. You wouldn't hear that we have the highest one of the highest incarceration rates in the country, with one of the highest incarceration rates in the history of the world. You wouldn't hear any of that other stuff, and you wouldn't hear any of the long-standing systemic problems with our economy, the lack of rights that workers and citizens have in this state. And so you would think that the opposition party would have a strong message about filling in those gaps and attacking the Republicans and going on the offense, putting forward a really good, positive vision for the state. And so here is the Alabama Democrats' official response to the state of the state from Ontario Tillman. Here is how he opened it.
Thank you for joining me this evening. I am Representative Ontario Tillman from Alabama House District 56.
Hey, 5 seconds. Just wanted to say that this is only possible because of our donors. If you want to see more of this, then consider donating yourself at tvlr.fm/donate.
This was presumably the first time he has ever spoken to a camera. I don't know. The entire delivery of that was like that. The whole 16 minutes was like that stunted kind of delivery. Very strange. Very strange. You would think that a politician has done public speaking before. I don't know why. Like, how can Kay Ivey be more charismatic than you as somebody who's like 50 years younger than she is? I don't know. That's crazy. But here's some of the substance of what he was saying, which was not bad. But let's listen to this.
We often think about freedom as being free from something, but freedom also means the freedom to do something, like being free to achieve your individual dreams and goals without undue hindrance or restraint. That beautiful ideal of freedom is what has brought us together as a nation and as a state. Freedom, as envisioned by President Franklin D. Roosevelt when he famously spoke of the vital and sacred importance of freedom of speech, freedom of worship, freedom from want, and freedom from fear, which are indispensable American values and ideals. To enjoy the freedom from want As President Roosevelt once defined, we must support building an economic environment that benefits hard-working Alabamians like you. That means promoting job growth, raising wages, and increasing investment in child care, transportation, apprenticeships, career training, and housing for you, for your family, and your community. We strongly believe in empowering new businesses to succeed by increasing access to capital and creating a pro-growth and profitable business environment that fosters innovation and entrepreneurship. Finally, workplace safety must always be a top priority for every employer and employee. Increasing economic opportunity is paramount, but as the saying goes, what good is wealth without health? To march forward for freedom, we must be healthy. And it is why we strongly believe that every Alabamian deserves access to quality, affordable health care. That means we must close the coverage gap, eliminate health care deserts, prevent more Alabama hospitals from closing, and invest in emergency services.
So there we go. And it looks like I was muted during the interlude between those two clips, and all I was doing there was just mocking his delivery. So it's not super important. But it was a very strange delivery, very stilted, strange for a politician. But, you know, and so there's some good things there, but... You know, he talked about job growth, talked about raising wages. He even mentioned FDR's Four Freedoms, which is like a super, super exciting thing to me. But all of the things that he mentioned were kind of, there was nothing, no big eye-catching proposal to differentiate them from the Republicans in a big way for working Alabamians. And so, you know, and even to the extent that there are, like, you know, really cool things that they were talking about, there's no mention of, like, why don't we have those things? Why is marijuana not legal? Why do we, I mean, he did mention I don't even know if he mentioned the Republicans when he talked about the abortion ban, but why don't we have strong workplace safety laws in Alabama? Why are poor people, why do they not have health care? Why do we have low wages in the state of Alabama? Why do teachers have low wages in the state of Alabama? Why do we have such low investment in child care and housing? Who is the enemy? Is it Republicans? Is it billionaires? Nobody knows, and they don't tell us. So, you know, like, I don't know. It's frustrating. It's very frustrating that that is the response from the opposition party in the state of Alabama. There's no big and bold thing to latch onto. There's no negative partisanship there. It's just, you know, I don't know. It's like not. It's like I don't think understanding of the moment that we are in. And that's all I had about that. Adam, what are your thoughts on Kay Ivey and Tillman?
Well, I'll just take a step back and just say that with Alabama politics, you talked about kind of why are things like this. And so we have to recognize that Alabama has been dominated by wealthy, powerful interests for most of our existence. And there have been moments in our history where everyday people, black and white, came together and tried to push back against this and try to have more freedom, as he described. And, you know, whether it was the populist era in the late 19th century or during the New Deal, during the Civil Rights Movement, we've had moments where folks have pushed back. But by and large, you know, what happens in Montgomery in the State House is largely shaped by a handful of very powerful entities, wealthy corporations and their owners. And that's who dictates policy in our state by and large. To change that, we need mass engagement from everyday people, right? We need a lot of people getting involved, a lot of people organizing, a lot of people activating other people. That's how we're going to have to shift these things. We need real people power in a way that we haven't seen in a long time. So that said, with, if we zoom back into kind of what has transpired in Alabama politics over the past week, I mean, there's been some good things. And to your point earlier about being willing to acknowledge when there's something positive happening, even if it's, from the opposition party, expanding parental leave is very important. And I was appreciative that the governor did speak out on that. There's, I think, room for improvement in what she's pushing, but, it's a step in the right direction. But there are a lot of really nasty bills being pushed in the legislature right now, attacking the unemployment system, attacking immigrants, attacking trans folks, attacking, workers in general. And so I think, again, I encourage people to get involved and to be actively engaged with organizations that are active, and be contacting your lawmaker, stay in touch with them. It doesn't take long to reach out to them. It's worth putting into your schedule, every week, check in with your lawmaker, because they do hear from these special interests. Yeah. They don't as often hear from everyday union folks, working class folks, just, rank and file citizens who are constituents in their district. So it's important that you talk to them, and it's important that we be thinking big picture. Yeah, how do we shift this dynamic of power in this state, where power has been concentrated in this, oligarchy for so long. And as a result, the working class people of Alabama experience some of the worst living conditions anywhere in the country, which, by the way, also means some of the worst in the developed world. You mentioned incarceration, infant and maternal mortality. You could go on and on. Our infrastructure is terrible. It's very, very disappointing to paint a rosy picture of life in Alabama when we know we rank at or near the bottom of everything good and at or near the top of everything bad. That is what the situation is. Like, that should be a crisis. We should be concerned. So, there's lots of opportunities, though, I would say, to make progress. There are some positive legislation that's being debated. The North Alabama Area Labor Council just put out a petition yesterday supporting SB 22. This bill would actually strip tax incentives from companies that violate child labor laws. We've seen a really disturbing increase in illegal child labor across the state and across the country, really. And this would actually give us a tool to hold companies more accountable. So that's the kind of legislation I like to see, and I'd like to see more of it. We've got to have, proactive responses. We can't just always be reacting to what attacks are coming, but no, we've got to paint a positive vision of what things could be if we actually made it better for regular folks and poor folks and folks who are on the margins.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.